Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to Philly Sports Fire. I'm Chris here with the Phillies offseason, covering a whole bunch of stuff. It has been some time since I've done this, so just gonna get right back into it. It's a new start after that crazy finish to the Phillies postseason. With Ryan Kerkering mistake, everything that happened, everything that went down, that intense series with the Dodgers, that a bunch of people are looking at. They were that close with the Dodgers, but ultimately they lost, and they lost in 4 games. So we're now heading to the offseason. It's back-to-back NLDS losses, and we're just gonna jump right into it. Kyle Schwarber, he's back with the Phillies on a 5-year, $150 million contract. Absolutely huge. I don't think we can really complain knowing that the Phillies had to go in, get a big hitter back on the team. Um, there was definitely some debate on whether it should be Bregman or Alonso or Kyle Tucker, Kyle Schwarber, who the Phillies should really be jumping in on. But I mean, we got to look at it for what it is. Kyle Schwarber has been, out of all the Phillies hitters in the past few years, he has been the most consistent and the one actually showing the most improvement if we're just looking at the regular season, what he's been able to do. So I think it's pretty much, a given that you got to have somebody of that caliber back. And he just came off of a career 56 home runs, 132 RBIs. Can't go wrong with that. And when he first came, he was looking to be, right about that Mendoza line, just about like a 200, above 200 hitter. And he hits 40 home runs, which is not the worst thing in the world. But, you're paying him $20 million a year to be a DH. And he just stepped it up so much this year. And with the Phillies looking at their window, which they really only have a few more years where they're going to have these guys playing at all-star levels, it pretty much made sense. They had to go for somebody. And are you going to risk it? Are you going to wait a little bit to see if somebody like Alonso you would go on? Or are you just gonna pretty much say, well, we got Kyle Schwarber right here. Gotta give him an offer, gotta give him what he wants because we're trying to win right now. So I definitely think it makes a ton of sense. I mean, looking what the Phillies just did this past year, what Schwarber was able to provide, it makes a lot of sense that they brought him back. And looking at what he does in the clubhouse, the guy is a big leader. We had Reese Hoskins was pretty much the voice of the clubhouse. Bryce Harper was the captain of the team. He's, was considered the best player, the guy that keeps things together, and he's here for years. But when it came to the vocal leader in the clubhouse, Kyle Schwarber was looked to be that guy with Hoskins being out. So that makes a ton of sense. For anyone wondering, no, this is not a Washington Nationals hat. This is a Williamsport Crosscutters hat. Back the day, of course, for those who may remember, Williamsport Crosscutters used to be the Philadelphia Phillies single A team. So I'm not going with the Washington Nationals here. I just had to get some hat going. Um, but yeah, that's the first domino to fall, and it really was the first domino to fall in in free agency, really. I mean, we had Kyle Schwarber, Edwin Diaz went directly after that to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Oh man, those Mets. And then to make things better, Pete Alonso signs with, I was about to say the Dodgers. That would be insane. Signs with the Baltimore Orioles. What are we doing here? This is crazy. This offseason, the way things are going so far. And that's how things are going. Asher says hi, Chris. What's up? Welcome in. So those are the first things to fall in free agency, but we are still waiting to see what comes next. There has been stuff about JT Real Muto, so let's take a look at that. Um, let's see right here. I might have just closed it out. I don't think I did. So JT Real Muto, as we know, is one of the key players that the Phillies have got to re-sign because, I mean, that the catching market is awful. Like let's say it for what it is. Who is out there that you would really put in a spot? The Phillies traded Eduardo Tait, their only catching prospect that we could have seen, realistically making an impact in the next few years. You can't look at um, Rafael Marchand or Garrett Stubbs being those guys. Neither of them are starting catchers. Phillies have got to bring back JT Realmuto, and they also, still got to keep an eye on for what they want to do in the future. But we are not at that point right now. We got to sign JT Realmuto back. So right here on Sporting News, the Sporting News, written by Matt Sullivan, article here. He mentioned Kyle Schwarber's pitch to JT Realmuto for a reunion. He said, quote, I sent him a text, I would not be lying if to didn't send one to him, trying to see where he's at and try to coax him. We'd all love to have JT Realmuto back. We know how much he means on the field and the clubhouse and to the city. So Kyle Schwarber gets back. He sends a message to Philly fans, just talking about how excited, he's gonna be, and I'm pretty sure he has, his wife is expected to give birth sometime very soon. So congratulations to the Schwarber family, and he signs a contract. He's staying in Philadelphia, and he's got another member to the family coming. It's looking really good, and he gives a message to Philly fans, and then says to JT Realmuto, already sending him text like we'd love to have you back, and I'm sure JT would love to be back too. Just looking at the other teams out there, Realmuto seems like he's very settled in. I know we could say that about players, but usually I only say it if I really mean it and if I actually think that guys are going to be back, because it's so typical for free agents to say, "Oh, I love being here, love being in this city. It's so good. I'd love to be back." But you know, there's some guys that it just seems like they really, really want to stay and they would not want to go anywhere else unless that team really did not care to bring them back. And with the Phillies, they care to bring him back. Apparently, it seems like more than Ranger Suarez. So, with that being the case, I could definitely see Real Muto actually seriously only wanting to be in Philadelphia unless they really wouldn't want him. I don't think Phillies are going to turn away from that. So I expect JT Realmuto to be coming back. What the deal is, I'm not sure. Apparently, the Phillies have an offer out for Realmuto, and we don't know what the offer is. We get these articles, and some of them say, teams interested in this player, interested in that player, but we really don't know exactly what they're looking for. Um, just wanted to check if anyone's listening. How's the audio level? Am I too quiet? Am I too loud? That tends to be an issue at times. I'm gonna trust that it's good until somebody says something. Um, yeah. So with that being the case, let's take a look at a little bit of other stuff. I haven't seen anything. Um, okay. And I guess just gotta wait, see if somebody says something. For now, I'm just gonna keep yapping. All right. Let's take our next thing. So the Phillies didn't make a move that was not really that big. Um, According to Matt Gelb on Twitter, Phillies are acquiring righty Correa. Yoniel Correa, I think it was. I looked up his pronunciation earlier. It's something like that. So Yoniel Correa from the Rays for minor league reliever Tommy McCullum, sources say. Correa, 23 years old, had been DFA'd by Tampa Bay. A lot of rhymings this way. Plus fastball, but control issues. Could be reliever. Goes on 40-man roster. Has a minor league option. So I think everything there is pretty good for the Phillies, unless Tommy McCullum, who they ended up trading away, ends up becoming a really good major leaguer and this does not work. I don't think we can really complain. Um, DFA'd by Tampa Bay. So he seems like a pretty exciting pitcher. When I was looking at past rankings, he was around top 20 of a prospect in Tampa Bay. So he wasn't considered to be extremely high. 250 pounds. So he's a big guy. Fastball is plus, but he has control issues. Kind of seems like a Jose Alvarado, who, by the way, came from Tampa Bay. Phillies traded for him. So he could be a reliever. So he has been starting actually in the minor leagues. Last year he had, or this past season, 2025, he did have some injuries or an injury at the beginning of the year, and that did take him out from some time. But he did pitch in AAA, did pretty solid. He has minor league options, so it's looking pretty good. You never know if one of those guys could end up, being one of those hidden gems like Andrew Bellotti, or if he could just play a little bit for some time if the Phillies are in need of somebody. Um, Cut out for a second, but now you're good. Okay, looks like I'm good. Volume's working well. Alrighty, sweet. So, you never know. Those guys could help a bit. Whoops, I just closed it out. It's all good. But I don't really see anything too bad in it. He definitely has some speed. Um I could see him as being one of those low risk, high reward type of players. And I have some very interesting stuff to share, though, because I don't want to get overhyped on those guys. You get somebody from the Rule 5 draft, or you make a trade for cash considerations, or you sign somebody to a spring training invite. You invite them to spring training. I don't want to get too hopeful, like, oh my goodness, this guy was a top first round pick, or he was this high in projections. But this is something that makes me see it a little bit differently. So Phillies Tailgate on Twitter said Fangraphs ranked Yoniel Correa as the Rays' number 2 prospect beginning of the 2025 season. So he was actually ranked right ahead of Chandler Simpson, who is a very debatable player. He stole 44 bases this past season in about 430 at bats. But, he doesn't strike out much, but he hits so many grounders. He's a singles champion. He hits a lot of singles, not many doubles. He has no power, he had no home runs. So, in 26 RBIs. So he was not extremely intriguing, but he batted around 300 and stole a lot of bases, so still could help in some ways. And he was ranked right behind Yoniel Correa in Fangraphs rankings. So a player that was helpful for Tampa Bay and that had some really great things to produce for them, that was in the major leagues this year, was ranked behind Correa in this Fangraphs prospect ranking. With that being the case, even though Correa was around number 20 of a prospect, he was looking really good in 2024. He had the injury in 2025. Who knows what could have happened if he had a full season in the minor leagues in 2025? Or maybe he got even called up to the major leagues. People could have been saying some different things. Look at Otto Kemp, for example. He went from, just being a guy down in the minor leagues, an undrafted player a few years ago, and not really much thought of him, to being a helpful piece in on the Phillies team off the bench, and even talked about as potentially being a starting player, which is something we can talk about another time. But with this being the case, I would still keep an eye on him. I would not look at Yoniel Correa and just say, oh yeah, he's immediately one of the top Phillies prospects. But I would definitely keep an eye out and see how things could be. He's only 23 years old. It's definitely I think things are all looking in the right position right there. And I think there was something else on him. Oh no, but the Philadelphia Phillies a few years ago, once upon a time, traded for a guy named Christopher Sanchez, made a three-team trade, sent away Garrett Clevenger, who became wait, no, that was in the Jose Alvarado trade. Phillies traded away Curtis Mead, who became a top prospect for the Tampa Bay Rays. The Phillies acquired Christopher Sanchez, who is now the best pitcher, the Philadelphia Phillies, and was just second in the Cy Young Award race in the 2025 season. He came from Tampa Bay to the Phillies in a trade. They also traded for a guy named Jose Alvarado, who was pitching a bunch of times like an all-star pitcher, was one of those higher relief pitchers on in a bullpen. And even though he's had some ups and downs, and we know what just happened this past year, they traded away a guy in Garrett Clevenger, or Mike Clevenger. I think it was Garrett Clevenger, I believe. Yeah. And he became a solid major league pitcher. But we've seen what Jose Alvarado is able to do. So the Phillies have made these like sneaky trades for some of these players from Tampa Bay, these pitchers, and we've seen what they've been able to do. So with this being the case, I don't see why we could at least, keep an eye on this guy and see what he's able to do down the road. I mean, if you're asking me, the last time Phillies really traded for a power arm that had some control issues, it was Junior Marte. They gave away Eric Miller to the San Francisco Giants, and that did not turn out too great for the Phillies. But Eric Miller still was looking to have some pretty darn good potential. And with this, I think Tommy McCollum was a pretty decent prospect that the Phillies just gave away. Some time ago, I think he may have been, a pretty solid player, but I don't think he's somebody who they have really big expectations for. So you never know. This could just become one of those sneaky things for the Phillies, and I assume that Yonel Correa is going to pitch for the Phillies sometime in spring training. So just keep an eye out. Never know what could happen. Um, let's see. All right, another article. This is by SI.com for the Philadelphia Phillies. Story written by Ian Harper. This is about Brenton Doyle as a potential outfielder for the Philadelphia Phillies. Doyle was a pretty nice player for the Colorado Rockies, who are an absolutely atrocious team right now. He won 2 Gold Gloves, 2023, 2024. So he's a plus defender. 2025, he definitely had some downs. Defensively, he was not as strong. Definitely had a drop off. Even offensively, he went from over 20 home runs and 30 stolen bases to about 13, 15 home runs this past season. And batted 233, 15 home runs, batted 233, had a 274 on base percentage. So really not that good. It just seems like another one of those could be pretty good if he ends up going back to how he did in 2024. I could definitely see him being a better than Brandon Marsh type of player. Both of them tend to strike out quite a bit, but he's got some more pop. He steals bases. He drove in 73 runs a couple of years ago, or last year. So, even with the drop off, I still think he could be a really solid player. I just don't think he moves the needle too much. He is controllable until 2029. So there are a lot of teams that are going for him, and I could see him being a solid piece to the team, but I see him as, at best, a middle of the rotation right-handed bat, so he's right-handed. He's a good defender, so there's definitely some pluses there. But um, yeah, I just don't know if we should be expecting a ton from it, but do keep an eye out just in case the Phillies do make more of a push for him, and if this does gain some more traction. Yeah, that's it right there. Some interesting things that I want to talk about. Okay, first here. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, so Asher in the comments said, "What do you think about our international trade market? Getting a Japanese pitcher would be awesome. Almost got one with Koyo Aoyaji. I totally butchered that one in the minors this past season. Um, so it's funny that you mentioned that because give me a sec. Man, it's getting cold in here. Not sure why. Yeah, it is winter, I know, but okay, I was actually literally right about to talk about that, about the Japanese market here. I was right about to go into that. So interesting that you mentioned that, Asher. Let's dive in. Okay, so the Liberty line, this is written by Drew Smith, just had an article put out about Kazuma Okamoto. For those of you who don't know, there are a few players on the Japanese market that are very interesting. 29-year-old Kazuma Okamoto, 25-year-old Munataka Murakami, and 27-year-old Tatsuya Imai. He's a pitcher. The other two are first baseman slash third baseman, and one of them, Murakami, is expected to possibly be a DH, which of course would not work for the Phillies. But let's look right here. Um, I'm actually gonna look at Tatsuya Imai first because it mentions in the article. Drew Smith said, when my article on Tatsuya Imai, that's a 27-year-old pitcher who I think he won MVP for Japan this past year, said, when my article on Tatsuya Imai went viral yesterday, the majority of comments foolishly dismissed the pitcher because getting fresh blood offensively was important to them. And here it has a link to the tweet that was said about Imai. So apparently, Phillies Tailgate had posted on Twitter that the Phillies made the front page of a Japanese newspaper. So apparently, Tatsuya Imai was on the front cover of a Japanese newspaper, and it has a picture of him with the Phillies logo on it. Says a lot in Japanese. I don't know Japanese, so I can't translate that. But I guess that's just something they have an eye on. And for some further things to dive into, Imai actually said that um, he would not want to join the Dodgers, but instead he would like to beat the Dodgers. I will get to that quote in a little bit. It brings in some very interesting stuff. There's a lot to this going on. It could be very exciting. So, it says according to an MLB executive, the Phillies are seriously considering acquiring pitcher Tatsuya Imai, 27 years old, from the Seibu Lions via the posting system. The team is short on right-handed starting pitchers and fits their need. That was by Daisuke Sugiura on Sponichi Annex Yahoo News. So that was what they said. The Phillies are seriously considering acquiring the pitcher, and he went on the front cover of the Japanese article. So that was posted by Phillies Tailgate on Twitter, mentioning what was said about Imai. And here is what the Liberty line back to them, what they said about Tatsuya Imai. So it goes into some stuff talking about it, mentions the tweet, and here It says, I've been writing about Tatsuya Imai for months because everything about him screams perfect Phillies signing. The stuff, the mentality, the competitiveness, the market fit. This dude wants to pitch in a real baseball city, not hide out somewhere quiet where nobody cares whether you give up 4 runs or 40. So this is the quote that Tatsuya Imai gave reporters. He said about the Dodgers, I want to take them down. Playing together with players like Otani, Yamamoto, Sasaki, and others sounds fun, but beating a team like that, becoming world champions, would be the most valuable thing in my life. That's huge. So mentions the Dodgers. So he's very, very big on that. I want to take them down. And when it comes to the other teams, he's still saying that he would rather go to a team without Japanese players on it so he can pave his own path because that's what he sees as a valuable thing to him. So with that, we're looking at the Chicago Cubs. They have Seiya Suzuki and Shota Imanaga. The New York Mets, who suck, are now without Pete Alonso and Edwin Diaz, and they also have Kodai Senga on the team. The Red Sox, who seem like they would be somebody very interesting, have Masataka Yoshida on the team. So with this being the case, a bunch of these teams already have some Japanese players there. Even the Los Angeles Angels, another team out west, they have um, Yusei Kikuchi. I'm pretty sure on their team. So with this being the case, if he wants to go to a team without Japanese players so that he can pave his own path, and I believe I saw somewhere that he prefers the East Coast. That actually seems like the Phillies would be the top team. Everything seems to be pointing to this. Why we're not hearing about it, I've got no clue. But here, looking at his stats from last year or from the 2025 season with the Cebu Lions, he had 24 starts, 1.92 ERA, 9.8 Ks per 9 innings, and 2.5 walks per 9 innings. Says in the article, the arsenal is ridiculous. He sits 95 to 98 with a low three-quarter slot that makes the baseball disappear until it's already halfway past you. The slider is a wipeout kill switch. The splitter falls off a cliff. The fastball jumps. It is a three-pitch death combo with front line upside today. Drop him into the Phillies rotation tomorrow, and he's a number 3 with ace potential. No projection needed. The price is a bleeping joke too. It says Fangraphs, which had the projection on Tampa Bay pitcher that we just got on him being a number 2 prospect. Fangraphs projects 5 years, $100 million for a 27-year-old with ace stuff. That is theft. You do not hesitate on that number. You sprint to the pen. This is a very fancy article. So that's right here. I just want to ask people. 5 years, $100 million. Does that contract sound familiar to you? You take a guess at who was the last Philadelphia Phillies player to have 5 years, $100 million? Yeah, you guessed it. I'm sure you guys guessed it. I bet you guys would. Even the people that don't follow them too closely, the fair weather Philly fans, would probably guess it was our man, Scooby Doo, Nick Castellanos. Who would you rather have if the Phillies are getting rid of Nick Castellanos and say you just replace the contract? Would you rather have Nick Castellanos or Tatsuya Imai break into the Japanese market, get a 27-year-old right-handed pitcher, and slide him into your rotation and easily be set again, even with Wheeler's uncertainty of when he's going to be coming in, and Andrew Painter, who knows when he'll be able to come up to the big leagues. You slide him in and easily have arguably maybe even the best rotation in baseball again. Even with Nola having, the injury and who knows if he's going to be exactly the same player as he was before, and Zach Wheeler too. So put in the chat. Would you rather Nick Castellanos or Tatsuya Imai? I'm going with Tatsuya Imai all day. He's only 27 years old. I think you go for it. So this is looking really exciting. It was actually I got such a laugh looking at the responses that people said from it. Um, one of the comments on Twitter, can he hit? Can we get Munetaka Murakami and Tatsuya Imai? Seems like Japanese players like to join teams with other Japanese players, so why not both? So somebody said, and he responded, get all three, just start the Japan pipeline. Guys, can you imagine? Now, I'm just completely joking about this, but what if the Phillies sign this Tatsuya Imai? And he's like, I want to path, pave my own way. I want to, go to a team where I'm the only, player from the Japanese market, on that team. And then two other guys, the two of the other free agents just say, you know what? Let's go chase after him. Let's go sign with the Philadelphia Phillies too. And they all sign with us. That'd be crazy. We would become the Philadelphia Dodgers. Okay, but it all starts with one. If we get one guy, think of it this way. Let's say in an ideal world, the Phillies, Dave Dombrowski is smart, and he brings back Schwarber, brings back Real Muto. He breaks into the Japanese market, maybe signs another big free agent. People are getting excited. Then, they got the vibes back. Everything's working well. Maybe they sign somebody next year, and the Phillies win a World Series, maybe even two World Series. And then years down the road, somebody from the Japanese market signs with the Phillies and says, I want to step in the footsteps of Tatsuya Imai, the first big player to sign with the Phillies from Japan and play in the major league. I'm not sure. Have the Phillies ever had, let me look that up right now. Have the Phillies had a Japanese player? Yeah, they did some years ago, but like the first big player on the Japanese market. So if this were the case, um, imagine somebody just coming in and being like Tatsuya Imai. He was a big pitcher for the Phillies. I'm also going to take a look at them. I'm also going to, join the Phillies and follow where he went. I think that would be exciting. I would love it. So if I'm the Phillies, I'm going for him all day. Um, you know, what can go wrong? What can go wrong? I think you absolutely go for that. Let's see. No more comments. I'm gonna get in a second to Kazuma Okamoto, the other target for the Phillies, potentially. Just a second. Let's see here. Okay, so that's everything. That's some stuff there on Tatsuya Mai. Let's go back to the article, one of the other ones. So the first one, because things kind of stem from it. Tatsuya Mai seems to be the big target that people are looking at. Um, that the Phillies seem to possibly be looking at. It says they're seriously considering it. Dave Dombrowski's not mentioning anything, so I'm not really sure if this is all talk or this is speculation. But it's just kind of funny that everything seems to connect. It's kind of funny that um that Japan has a newspaper going out with Tatsuya Imai on the front cover, and Imai says that he wants to, be on the East Coast to find his own way, and just everything seems to be connecting. So if this is the case, Maybe it'll be one of those secret things. Remember, we heard that the Phillies are interested in Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and it didn't seem exactly like they were going to sign him. But then we find out that Dave Dombrowski offered, I think it was what, 325 million or so, and he just decided that he wanted to be a Dodger. So it happens. But maybe it's one of those things that, it's not looked at too much, but maybe the Phillies are actually seriously considering it. And so let's look back here. That was a bit of a tangent, but let's go back. The Liberty line, Drew Smith about Kazuma Okamoto. He said he might be the Phillies' best offseason fit, and nobody is talking about it. Chat, why are we not talking about it? All right, let's see right here. When ESPN's Kyler McDaniel releases full breakdown on it, okay, it's talking about that, mentions Tatsuya Mai. Here it says Kazuma Okamoto is the perfect fit. Kazuma Okamoto might quietly be one of the most perfect fit for the Phillies on the entire market. Analysts describe Okamoto as the safer and cheaper alternative to Munetaka Murakami. So Murakami is a 25-year-old third baseman who might potentially be a DH. He's expected to probably sign longer. He did it 56 home runs a year or two ago in Japan, which is huge. Funny, Kyle Schwarber did the same thing, but with that's with Murakami, but there's a bit more risk. Defensively, he's not as strong. He strikes out a ton. He just doesn't seem exactly to have as much of a fit, and he's going to cost more money and be on a contract for more years, and he's left-handed. Okamoto is, pretty different in that sense. So, says if you're not familiar with Murakami, I want him to. All three players mentioned actually, yeah, all that. So Kazuma Okamoto is 29 years old. Already has more than 245 career home runs in Japan and brings a safer offensive profile that stands out in an NPB class filled with high variance sluggers. So NPB is the Japanese baseball league. If Murakami, that's the younger one who is not really mentioned as much in this article. If Murakami is the high upside lottery ticket who might take time to adjust, Okamoto is the plug and play bat who hits immediately, does not strike out much while doing it. So, I mean, let's pretty much look at it this way. If the Phillies were a team that was not in first place and consistently making the postseason and really don't have too long of a window with their current crop, then maybe they would be looking if they're, you know, fighting for the playoffs and, got a younger team. It might make more sense to go for Murakami, who will probably take longer to adjust to Major League Baseball, but in the long run, might be one of the best power hitters in Major League Baseball in some years. It's definitely possible, and I love that. The fit just doesn't seem to be there as much. So back to Kazuma Okamoto. What makes it even better is that Okamoto is the right-handed lower whiff power bat the Phillies have not had since Rhys Hoskins. Except Okamoto brings better contact rates, a calmer approach, significantly less boom or bust volatility. We remember with Rhys Hoskins that I loved Rhys Hoskins. I was a huge Rhys Hoskins fan, but he was striking out a ton. There were times where he was pretty streaky. There were, he would go through like first 2 months of a season or so, 1, 2 months, where he's like batting under 200. He's looking pretty awful. And I was saying that, I'm like, oh, trade Rhys Hoskins. He's doing terrible. And, it was pretty much like he's a power bat. He's a slugger. He's gonna strike out, but he's also gonna hit home runs. But with Okamoto, he doesn't strike out so much, and he's not like a big strikeout candidate. He is, pretty solid contact hitter. He has a ton of power, He's a right-handed bat, just like Hoskins. And defensively, I don't think he could really be worse than Rhys Hoskins. So here, the Wrigley Wire on Twitter posted Japanese star Kazuma Okamoto is projected to get a 3-year, $36 million MLB contract by ESPN's Kylie MCD. I think it's Kylie McDaniels. Um, that's not as much as I expected. Um, so here, says Okamoto posted a 210 WRC plus with elite bat to ball skills on display on top of his .598 slug. .598 slug. Dang. In 2025, he played 52 games at third base, 27 games at first base, 15 games in left field. There's quite a bit here with Okamoto. So first thing, he did have some big seasons in the past, but Okamoto and Murakami, actually both Japanese hitters on the market, were injured for quite a bit of 2025. So it's just interesting how, they get posted right after they had some injury riddled seasons, but that still doesn't take away from their market because we know how good they can be and how proven they have been in Japan. So it is a bit of a sample size. But here, um, just looking at his position. So Okamoto has been playing third base in Japan. And he's projected to possibly be a first baseman, but he's also played left field. So it's mainly been I'm pretty sure it's been third base, first base, then left field. He's projected to be first base, but he could play third and left field you could throw him out in. He's a big guy, you know, 245 pounds. I thought it was 235, but yeah, he's a big dude. He's got a lot of power, and neither of them are known for like running or like stealing a ton of bases, but we know that the power that they can bring, and that's what we're looking for if you're looking at Okamoto's that right-handed power bat. And when we look defensively, I think, Harper, he's going to be at first base. And Kyle Schwarber is going to be at DH for the next few years. And if Okamoto could play in the outfield, and if you got like Justin Crawford and, either Brandon Marsh or Harrison Bader playing, defense, I think your defense is going to be pretty good. And you can throw out Okamoto. I don't think he can really be worse than Castellanos. And when it comes to Alec Boehm, he has been improving defensively, but I think you could slide in Okamoto if defensively you're fixing some of the other positions. If you still try to get some solid hitters, but get some good defense out there, I think it'll be fine. I don't think we can really get worse unless we're actually finding ways to get worse. So um when it comes defensively, I think we'll be able to work that out. Now, I will say, I think this would mean an Alec Boehm trade comes unless they're looking to slide Okamoto in the outfield right away and put Boehm at third. I don't see that happening. And, if it looks like the Phillies are blocking the way of Aiden Miller, then, I still think in the future then you could slide Okamoto in the outfield. But I don't think you're going to have a situation where Boehm plays third, Okamoto plays the outfield. Then there might be a little bit of concern defensively, but I don't think it's really too much of a concern right now. So I would think that an Alec Boehm trade is coming, and I don't have a problem with that. I think that, this helps you break into the Japanese market and you get more of a fit, the type of player that you'd want. Boehm has been, a solid gap hitter. He's got, he could hit 15, 20 home runs, but, there was some more expectation on him. And I still think he's a solid hitter, but he's a middle of the order type of bat. I don't think he's somebody that you insert at number 2 or number 3 in your lineup. I think Okamoto could potentially be that. It would be just really exciting to get a new face coming into the Phillies, and especially somebody who, is pretty new to, he's new to Major League Baseball. It'd be cool to see the Phillies go for a different look there. We've seen, they haven't really got those power bats or those big bats from their minor leagues. I mean, the biggest ones we've had in our past on the past like 10, 15 years since that the crop that won the World Series in 2008, we've had Reese Hoskins, we've had Alec Bohm, but that's not really enough. Those are like all-star at best, or like fringe all-star type of players. And it would be good to see that, since that which has not been as strong in our free agency, we've got a bunch of free agents. It'd be nice to see the Phillies go out and break into the Japanese market and just bring in a new face, a new fresh player, and see how he's able to handle things, what he's able to do. And I saw at first, I thought I saw somewhere that he was going to make around 15, 20 million a year for like 5 or 6 years. And I was like, I don't know if that's really it. That's not much different than like Castellanos and Schwarber, what they were getting some years ago. Then I thought it was going to be about 15 million a year. This 3 years, he's projected to get 3 years, 36 million. That's 12 million a year for a guy you might be able to slide in towards the top of your order. And he's only 29 years old. So I think that would be excellent. That's something that I don't think you hesitate on doing. You get a right-handed power bat. You get somebody who's only 29 years old. You get him cheaper than the other free agents that you've been signing. You get, pretty much that fit that you've been looking for. I think he's just the type of player that the Phillies should be getting on their roster. Okay, let's look back in the article. Here's where it gets even better, Phillies fans. The projected cost is almost comically reasonable for a player of this skill set. Reports estimate in the range of something in the range of 3 years and 45 million, including a posting fee. Okay, yeah, I was thinking something like that. Might be it. Japanese reporting has hovered around a similar number, with many projecting contract closer to 3 years, 36 million. For comparison, that is half of what many expect Pete Alonso to get, and a fraction of the piece from Murakami. This is before Pete Alonso signed with the Baltimore Orioles today. At that cost, Kazuma Okamoto is exactly the type of mid-market power addition that contenders usually trip over themselves to sign. He can play first base, third base, or left field, which gives Rob Thompson flexibility. 2024, he logged 52 games at third base. Yeah, I mentioned that again. Even with an injury-shortened 2025 season, he still put up a 322 average, 15 homers, and a 992 OPS in just 77 games. So 77 plus 77 is 154. So that's nearly played about half an MLB season, and he batted 322 with 15 homers and 992 OPS. I think that's looking pretty sick to me. Here it says, it keeps talking. The Phillies have a lineup where Okamoto fits perfectly. If Murakami winds up elsewhere, Okamoto is the ideal fallback option. Honestly, given his bat-to-ball skills, his age, and his contract projection, he might be more appealing than any of the other guys in the free agent market. At this point, you probably have to trade Alec Bones to add Okamoto, unless you can convince them to play left field full-time, which, all things considered, actually seems like a realistic option given the Phillies' current outfield. Yeah, our outfield is pretty rough. So he might be playing in the outfield, and if they feel like he could do it, sure, why not? This is exactly the type of move a smart front office makes. Okay. John Middleton said some years ago that he's willing to spend stupid money. And, that keeps being mentioned. Dave Dombrowski has been pretty defensive in terms of, when mentions running it back, bunch of different things. I could see, I think that when we're looking at what the Dodgers and the Orioles and the Red Sox are doing, this is not quite as hard as what these other teams have done in these past few weeks what these other teams are doing to ask the Phillies to retain some of their free agents going on the Japanese market and get someone like this. This is the type of move that a smart front office would do. David Dombrowski should be all over this because just retaining your own free agents is not enough because those guys were already on your team. When we're looking at making some moves, there's going to be some moves internally, like, some rookies coming in, like Justin Crawford. There's going to be um some little moves you make in free agency. But if you're looking to move the needle, if you're not looking to make trades, then it makes sense to, pay 10, $15 million for a guy who can be slot towards the beginning of your lineup. It just makes sense. The Phillies need to make bigger moves than just retaining some of their own free agents. They gotta make a bigger move. This offense did not do well in the postseason, and it struggled in past postseasons. It seemed like in 2021 when the Phillies made that postseason push to the World Series. The offense was looking pretty darn great then. But also remember that the guys were 4 years younger then. We had Reese Hoskins back then. We had Bryce Harper was what, 29 years old or so. I don't think he was even 30 years old then. Then you signed Trey Turner, and things still we went down, and now we're going just down and down a bit in the postseason there. Got to get some hitters that are going to be able to strike. You got to go for it. You can't just say, oh, well, the Phillies offense is not doing as great, so let's just focus on something else. No, you got to focus on the offseason. Because remember, what brought the Phillies to the postseason? What brought the Phillies from being a few years ago, from being a 500 team and missing the playoffs, 2019, 2020, brought them to then being a wild card team? I think it was making some moves for Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos, going out and signing some bigger bats. But then the Phillies have got to remember that it's 4 years later. They didn't sign 26, 27-year-old hitters that would then be entering their prime once those contracts are done. They sign guys or, still like in their prime. It's now a few years later. Get Schwarber back. He's going to be 33, but that's fine to have one of those guys. You got to be able to get a bit younger. They signed Schwarber and Castellanos when at ages supposed to be prime ages, 29, 30 years old. And now, once years passed, got to look back and say, okay, we can sign some of the crop back. We can sign Wheeler and Nola and Schwarber back because we believe that they will be stronger for some more years. But even if it means having 2, 3 years where they're, taking a drop, you still sign them for the big years because you got to retain those types of players. But you got to be able to replace the other players that are no longer at that caliber of when they helped take you to the postseason. Because Nick Castellanos, he didn't do as well in 2021, but Schwarber did. Schwarber was doing strong. And I think that making those pushes is still what brought the Phillies to that point. Yes, we won 96 games, but we can't, go on just with this same exact crop for years and years. It's a stopping point. So the rest of the article, it says a right-handed bat who lengthens the lineup, stabilizes strikeout issues, gives the team another 30 home run threat for a fraction of the cost. What is one of the big themes that the Phillies have in their offense? It's swinging for the fences, which leads to striking out a lot, but it also leads to a lot of home runs. The Phillies are starting to, other than Kyle Schwarber, they don't have as much as that power as before, so they need some of that power back. But how about get somebody who does that and doesn't strike out as much? That's Kazuma Okamoto. I think this is the type of player they need. Phillies are truly in on this tier of player. There's no reason to overthink it. Sign Kazuma Okamoto and worry about everything else later. Guys, You didn't hear it from me first. You heard it from Drew Smith from the Liberty Line. Shout out to him. That was an awesome article. I completely agree. I think he is the top player we need to sign to free agency. They got to get Real Muto back. After Real Muto, they've got to go for Okamoto. If they can't get Okamoto, or if they don't get Okamoto, they got to get Tatsuya Imai, who, based on this article, based on him being on the Japanese magazine, newsletter, whatever it was, based on them saying, according to an MLB executive, the Phillies are seriously considering acquiring pitcher Tatsuya Imai. I think it just makes too much sense. We've not really heard it as much from the big insiders. Why are we not hearing from John Heyman, from Jeff Passan, from Ken Rosenthal, from Todd Zalecki, or any of the other writers, Matt Gelb? Why haven't we been hearing too much of this? And I'm not saying, oh, they're just not talking about it. I'm wondering if, because I trust those guys, and for the most part, even when it comes to the MLB reporters, I know they slip up at times, but those are the guys we look to for these tweets, for these reports. And so when we're not hearing it from them, we are hearing from other places. Where you're hearing it from Japan, that the Phillies are serious about him. I'm wondering why we're just not hearing as much from the MLB guys themselves, the big guys that we're used to hearing from. And it's just interesting. I'm very curious. I'm very curious. I've got no idea what the answer is to it. So that's really the main stuff that I wanted to talk about. So before we get out here, I just want to see if there is any more news, any big news. Notification from Ken Rosenthal. Okay. I don't see anything really from Ken Rosenthal. Oh, another new notification. John Heyman. Wait, is this just in? Oh, 46 minutes ago. Red Sox, Cubs were the other teams that met with Alonso last night. He was never spotted by media as he went through a side entrance and used a service elevator. Ooh, Pete Alonso being sneaky. Yeah, and then he signs with the Baltimore Orioles. Dude, I was not expecting this. It's just, it's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy how this stuff happens. Let's look at the Phillies, see if there's any other notes. Phillies did lose Griff McGarry in the Rule 5 draft. So it's a shame that he didn't pan out. So we'll see. This is interesting right here. An article just came up. This is from the Philadelphia Inquirer. The Inquirer says, it's written by Lachlan March, said Phillies select pitcher Zach McCamley in Rule 5 draft. Says, quote, he could make the team. Okay, so the Phillies lose Griff McGarry, but they did get a pitcher, Zach McCamley, who's 26 years old, who had a really nice minor league season. And the Miami Marlins organization had 2.90 ERA and 1.097 WHIP in 62 innings between AA and AAA. According to draft regulations, McCamley was assigned directly to the Phillies' 26-man roster. Phillies might have somebody who could be battling for a bullpen spot. I might do another video at some point talking more about the Phillies team, their structure, because right now their lineup just does not look very strong right now when looking at it. Castellanos is out. Bader's not back. JT Realmuto's not signed at the moment. It's looking kind of rough. Starting the rotation should be good, but I don't think it would really hurt to add another one. That's another thing to talk about. The bullpen, we've got some proven guys, and Joe Honderon. Yes, the Phillies have a closer. We're going into the season with an actual closer, and we still got Matt Strom And Orion Kirkring, as much as people will complain about him for the postseason bubble, he's still a good higher arm in the rotation. I don't know if he's your setup man. I don't think he's, an all-star pitcher, but he's still really good. We can't forget about what he's been able to do. Stretches where you would have like 15 games straight or so without giving up a run. And they still got Jose Alvarado. We'll see how he's able to do. Then they have Tanner Banks still on the roster. So they still got some really nice pitchers there. I expect Taijuan Walker at some point might move to the bullpen. He'll probably start out, if I were to guess, in the starting lineup, the starting rotation with Wheeler out, and who knows if Painter will be in. There's some questions with that. But they got some spots open for the bullpen. I still think they got to sign one or two bullpen arms, at least for safety. But yeah, it says so. David Dombrowski said he's talking about McCamley, the pitcher that the Phillies just got, and his chance of making the team. Of impacting it, he said, "quote When we drafted him, we had the feeling that he can make the team. And one of the things that we've talked about looking to have over the last few years is a right-handed person in the bullpen that dominates right-handed hitters. So we think he has a chance to do that." Okay, so then they mentioned Yoniel Correa, who maybe will be one of my favorite Phillies soon. We'll see. But he made 14 starts last season. The Phillies view him as a reliever. Dave Dombrowski said it's nice to hear Dave Dombrowski talking about these guys. He said he has options available. He has an arm that we really like. He's been really been successful at the minor league level. Plus fastball. We have roster spots, so we're going to start building some depth and taking advantage of it. Okay, that's good, but that doesn't mean we can't sign some bullpen arms. We still have to sign him. So yeah, I do like those options, but I'm not going to get overhyped. Actually, I will. Why not? This is the Phillies off season, and we've only signed Kyle Schwarber so far. Just get me hyped. No, I'm still going to be fairly lenient on this. I'm not gonna try to get my hopes up too much. But let's see. Any last news on the Phillies? Any final reports? Yeah, Phillies announced trade. Those articles are gonna get me. Okay. The Phillies tweeted that they got their new pitcher from Tampa Bay, and they even had a pronunciation in parentheses so that people can pronounce it right. That's hilarious. Yoniel Correa, or maybe it's one. Yoniel Correa from the Tampa Bay Rays in exchange. Okay. So the Phillies 40-man roster currently stands at 35 players. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what they do after that. So 5 spots open. They still have probably 1 or 2 outfield. I would guess about 2 outfield spots that they're going to need to fill. JT Realmuto, maybe a bullpen arm, and another hitter or pitcher, and maybe they'll move somebody else off the 40-man roster. But I didn't realize we're already at 45 guys, or 35 guys. So that kind of is interesting to see what's up there. With where the Phillies are at. Why Kyle Schwarber returned, pitching additions, Wheeler's rehab. Okay, the New York Times. Let's see if they let me read this. This is by Charlotte Varnes. Hopefully I can read this. Just want to get to the Wheeler part. I just want to hear about that. Talking about Schwarber. It's awesome. Okay, so Dave Dombrowski said, quote, Paul's got him coming in 3 times a week. That's with his head athletic trainer, which he needs to do. And not only playing catch, but he needs to strengthen some muscles because he hasn't used them, which is normal. But everything's been encouraging. Doctors signed off for him to continue to move forward. Okay, so it's a wait and see on Wheeler. I've got no idea when he's going to be able to pitch again, and we expect him to return, if he'll be in for spring training. I don't think he'll be playing spring training if I were to guess, but we'll see how updates keep going with that. And lastly, let's just see if there's any other MLB news. Um, yeah, it's just crazy what's going on with the New York Mets. You know, um, they lose Edwin Diaz, they lose Pete Alonso, lose some fan favorites. They trade away Brandon Nimmo. I don't know what the New York Mets are doing, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go from here. Analyst loses his mind over the Mets losing Alonso. Yeah, the Mets are not good. Um, Mets fully aware of work left to do this winter. Yeah, they've barely done anything. They got Devin Williams, but um, yeah, Mets wrap 2025 winter meeting. So are the winter meetings done already? So they've concluded. We've seen Schwarber, Diaz, and Alonso signed. Um, yeah, we'll see where things go from here. It'll be interesting. I expected there was some mention, that it will be busy and the dominoes will fall when Schwarber falls first, is what was heard. I do think there will be probably like a couple signings happening each of the next few days, some notable signings, but still might be a bit of time when it comes down to sweepstakes for players such as Kyle Tucker and Bo Bichette or Ketel Marte, the trade there. So we'll see what happens. It doesn't seem like there's really too much going on, and yeah, it seems like it's really it. So that's all I've got, everybody, and keep an eye on for more coming this off season. It's been real. See what the Phillies do going from here. If any other big trades or signings happen in the MLB in the next few days, it'll be interesting. But I'm still here, still here. Phillies fans, we're chilling. Um, to see anybody else in the chat. If there's anything else being said, I think that's it. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in and watching this. And just keep an eye out for more off-season action. It's been real. Chris here from Philly Sports Fire. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down below, press the like button, and leave a comment. Tell me what you guys think. Should the Phillies make some trades? What signings would you do? Very interested to hear your takes, and appreciate everybody. And peace out, Philly.